So guys, good morning all for participating in the fourth and final session for Energy Management Center small grants program. So today, Engineer Febin Kiviam, who is now working in Schneider Electric Private Limited as Business Development and Offer Manager, IoT, Advisory Level, Digital Services. So Febin will be taking today's session. Today's session is all about the IoT in the context of HVAC sector, and Febin will be going through the session. Thank you so much, Febin, for logging in, and over to you.
Thanks, Anup. Thanks a lot. I'll just share the screen first.
It got ended, Febin.
Yeah, because I had to unmute, so I just okay. Hope the screen is visible and I'm loud and clear.
Yes. Yeah.
So good morning all once again. This is Febin here from Digital Services team of Schneider Electric, and I am responsible for sales, business development, and offer management of EcoStruxure Building Advisor, which is the managed software as a service on HVAC equipments. And hope all of you and your families are safe in this condition, in this present times, which is very unfortunate. And a special thanks to Energy Management Center Kerala for providing this opportunity to present about IoT and analytics on HVAC. So, well, before we get into the presentation, just one slide about Schneider Electric, what we are and what we do. We are very proud to be a growing technology company, providing energy and automation digital solutions for efficiency and sustainability for our customers around the world, while continuing our strong commitment to innovation. We are a well-balanced company globally with about 135 plus employees in over 100 countries. We serve 4 customer segments, buildings, data centers, industry, and infrastructure. Our revenues are also very well balanced across the globe, and 41% of our revenues come from new economies, and 50% of our revenues come from digitization, that is connected products, edge controls, analytics, software, services, and AI and more. So I believe when I say connected products, edge controls, analytics, I think in the yesterday's session you would have seen one slide about it somewhere. So that's the reason I'm just straight away getting into that. And 5% of our revenues are devoted towards R&D. So we are innovating, and that is what makes Schneider what we are. And well, contents for the day. Before we get into the contents, I would like to appreciate EMC Kerala for the initiative taken to conduct the Smart Energy Management System webinar, and especially the project proposal under the Small Grants program. And I encourage the students here to utilize this initiative to the maximum and gain exposure to the industry. Because when you learn theoretical IoT in the textbooks, that is different than when you actually experience in the field. So I encourage students to gain maximum from this, and try out your projects, be innovative when you're submitting your proposals. So contents, first is the energy trend in HVAC. Second, I would go through very rough basics about HVAC, and then the digital disruptions, the future of all the technologies you would have gone through in the second day session, but I'll just brush through again all the basics again. And then traditional versus analytics in HVAC. And EcoStruxure is what we say when we refer as IoT in Schneider. So a brief on that, and how, because the project that I'm planning, I'm also giving a suggestion on project. So that is related to this EcoStruxure. And we will be talking about project plan on digital twin for chiller plant. And then I'll be giving the references to whichever I have made during this presentation to make this content. And then a demo. So, well, the first session, first block is about HVAC energy trend, where we will be discussing about the energy consumption in HVAC for buildings and a report from our own BEE on the demand analysis for cooling sector in India. And any questions can be posted in the chat. And since I'm on a full screen mode, I will not be able to see. I think what we should do is better. We'll address all the questions at once the complete presentation is over. And so energy consumption in HVAC for buildings. So the source for this document is from US Department of Energy for an office building environment. So, and this is true across almost all the industries and almost most of the industry. Maybe the variation would be about 5% plus or minus. So in any commercial buildings, HVAC accounts for about 45% of the total energy consumed. And in that 45%, about 65% of the energy is consumed from the plant room alone. So when I say plant room, that is where you have the chillers, you have all the pumps, you have all the chiller plant equipment room. And again, across that 65%, 78% is consumed by the heating and cooling process, which essentially is from the chiller. So therefore, optimization of the energy within the plant room is very critical because of the numbers, the very numbers that we're seeing here. So if you are able to optimize the energy consumption in this plant room, you can save about maybe about 10 to 20% of the energy consumed. And anyway, it is related to the energy bill later on. So this is about the energy consumption trend that we have. And this is a report from Bureau of Energy Efficiency. By 2027, we expect the energy consumption to grow around by 2.2 times than it is present. And I have highlighted interventions. So when I say intervention, it is that we have to add intelligence to this so that we can reduce the consumption by about 17% in a decade. So this is a very good report, and this is available in the Bureau website, and there are some newspaper cuttings also for all related to this analysis. And I urge students, while proposing your proposal, go through this report as well so you can get some ideas from this. And this is about a basic trend in HVAC. So the next session or the block is about basics of HVAC. I'm sure most of us know what a refrigeration cycle is, but I'll just brush through again. And then we will be talking about a typical HVAC system in small buildings. What is the purpose of having an HVAC? And some of the best practices to be followed in a HVAC system. And end of the day, HVAC needs to be controlled and monitored. So we have building management system for it. So this would be the basics of the session. And I'm sure most of you would have seen this maybe from your school days to college to whenever you are like studying anything related to mechanical engineering or anything to air conditioning. So this would be probably the first lesson that you would have, or probably the first diagram you would have seen when you see a refrigeration or when you talk about an air conditioning. So a basic refrigeration system is made up of a compressor, a condenser, expansion valve, and an evaporator. I didn't want to make it more complex, so I have chosen this photo so that it is very simple. And a compressor, okay, now we'll talk about the cycle. The compressor increases the pressure of refrigerant. So these lines represent refrigerant. The compressor increases the pressure of the refrigerant, and it becomes in gaseous state, and the temperature is high. So in the condenser, the refrigerant loses the heat to surroundings, gets to become in a liquid state, and you have high pressure still, temperature low. And directly you have condenser, but what happens? Evaporator cannot take in the high pressure refrigerant. So that is the reason we have an expansion valve here. It essentially reduces the pressure of refrigerant and is suitable for evaporator. So you have low temperature and low pressure. And in the evaporator, the refrigerant gains heat from the surroundings, which actually results in cooling the area being, under subject. So then again the cycle repeats. So this is the cycle followed in almost all the refrigerant cycle when it is a vapor compression. There are many other cycles. So this is a very basic cycle that I was talking about. And typically in a small building, HVAC equipments would be all this that has been shown here in the figure. So I'll start with chiller, and you would see a primary pump, and you can see a secondary pump which would deliver to the load, and you will have some HUs, and HU will have some dampers, air filters, and you can see the ducting work in the floor, and you have VAV boxes which will control the flow and then diffusers again. So this is the chiller line. You will have also cooling tower in case of a water cooled chiller. So if you have an air cooled chiller, you will not find a cooling tower. So, and in some cold areas, you would need some heating to be done in the building. So you will have a similar setup, but with a boiler. So boiler pump, and so on and so forth. So every equipment that is shown here consumes energy. So the most being chiller. So when I referred 45%, it is this entire system, the HVAC system, consumes 45% of the energy bill, and 65% is from the chiller plant room alone. And again, 78% is actually happening from chiller alone, the cooling and heating process. So this is the impact when it comes to the energy, in the HVAC system. I'm going very basic so that we understand from the basic to the how this is getting evolved into the newer age. And the purpose of HVAC, I have written a lot of sentences here, but end of the day, I would want you to remember is just conditioned air. So what do you mean by conditioned air? It is that you should have a clean air and a odor-free air, and the temperature, humidity are all within the comfortable range. So, and when I say about comfortable range, ASHRAE recommendation is about for temperature 22.7 degrees to 26.1 degrees, and relative humidity 50%. So that can be varied, maybe about 40, 50, 60%, but ideally this is what the recommendation comes from the ASHRAE. And now let's get into some of the best practices that has to be followed in HVAC. So since I'm referring to that 78%, 65% in the plant room, I'll be talking about this particular area so that the best practices followed here can lead to the energy saving. So ideal chiller design or rating, IKW per TR. Apart from COP and all other features, IKW per TR, that is integrated kilowatt per TR, tonnage of refrigeration, is the ideal stuff which will let you know what the chiller or how the chiller has to be chosen. So 0.4 to 0.8 is recommended for a water cooled chiller, and 0.7 to 1.1 for air cooled chillers. So when I mean 0.4 or 0.8, or when I say IKW per TR, it means to produce 1 TR of water, it is consuming about X kilowatt. So this X can be replaced by 0.4, 0.8. The lesser it is, the good. And the ideal operating temperature of a chiller in a real estate building would be about 5 degrees or 6 degrees, and in some cases to about 8 degrees. And evaporator set point, temperature set point should be about 5 degrees to produce 5 degrees of chilled water. And delta T is a temperature difference between supply and return. That is usually varying from 4 to 6 degrees. And if at all it is above 6 degrees or below 3 degrees or below 4 degrees, there are some consequences, which is again discussed later. So an example would be if it is less than 3, it means the entire plant is in an inefficient operation mode, and then it is leading to additional energy consumption. So cooling tower, the ideal scenario, again, it is a delta T, nothing but supply and return temperature. The difference between that has to be about 3 to 5 degrees. And condenser supply, this is an example. If it is 32 degree, the return is expected to be at about 27 degrees. And chiller pump operation and standards. So chiller pumps are usually run through the VFDs or controlled through VFDs, and then you have some sequencing operations. So based on that programming and based on the building load, this will operate so that you have the energy saving measures incorporated. So this is about the best practices required for the plant room. And well, about delta T, if anybody knows what a delta T is, you can just put it in the chat, and maybe I'll not be able to see it right now. Maybe others can just have a view of that. So a delta T is nothing but a temperature difference between two measuring points, be it supply and and especially for understanding the performance of heating and cooling systems. So it is actually known as the magical number in the HVAC system to diagnose and problem solving. And as I said or referred earlier, if delta T is low, then it leads to condensation, which would further lead to rusting. And if delta T is high, it would lead to overheating, and that results in a component damage. So this, in a nutshell, if I have to say what delta T is, this is what probably you can just refer to. And another very important factor when we talk about HVAC systems or energy saving measures, relative humidity. So relative humidity, basically for two reasons, we'll have to measure this. One is for the use in energy analysis of cooling systems. And the second one is for control purpose in the critical environment. So when you talk about energy calculations, moist air is actually more expensive to cool than the dry air. Hence, moisture data is essential for analysis of cooling system performance. So what it means is, if you have a dry air and now you are using the HVAC, it would need less energy. But if you have a moist air, you would need some point of additional energy to cool the dry air and then have the HVAC system run. So that is another important factor. And say libraries, labs, data centers are all examples of critical environment. So like was mentioning libraries. So one of the important points, so libraries, to avoid damage to books and to prevent static electricity in the area. And how it can affect human comfort in the other spaces, like which is not critical or non-critical spaces in the area. I was mentioning 50% as per ASHRAE standard. So you have some bracket. 30 to 50% is considered very good. 20 to 60% of RH is considered acceptable. But if anything goes above 60 degrees, it will lead to mold and bacteria growth, maybe in the ducting system, which again results in other effects. Like you would have seen in some of the offices where it is very cold, people fall sick. So that's another reason. And if the RH gets to below 20 degrees, that would lead to dry skin and build of static electricity. So again, you would have faced this as well. If the RH is not controlled, probably in some of the AC environment, you will feel, once you're out from the office or from the controlled environment, you have kind of dry skin on your face or hand. So you can feel that. So this is the other effect of RH, not controlling the RH. So end of the day, what we are meaning is extremes will contribute to occupant discomfort and loss of productivity. And here I will have a question to all of you in the chat. So probably I may not be able to see the chat right away, but I would pause for about say 2 or 3 minutes, and probably Anup or Anish, somebody can confirm me if there's any answer that is seen.
Yes,
So,
yes, some basic questions I am also answering. You can you can continue.
Yeah.
No issue.
So variable frequency drive. So why it is important? So what is a variable frequency drive? It is a type of adjustable speed drive used in electromechanical systems to control AC motor speed and torque by varying motor input and voltage, input frequency and voltage. So why? If you were to say it theoretically, you can see the graph. Now the question is open to all the students here. You can just answer anything that you know can make out from this image or from this graph. So on the x-axis you have flow, and on the y-axis you have power. So this, I will give a clue. This is what probably is the need of a VFD in a HVAC system. So go ahead and start answering. Maybe I would at least see about, if I can see about 5 responses, Anup or Anish, if you can confirm, then probably I will be on pause mode until then, and then we can continue with the session. You can just answer anything. There is no wrong answer to it. Please attempt. What do you understand from this graph?
Yes, the floor is open. Participants can just type the suggestion so that we will communicate.
Or if they wish to unmute and speak up, even that is appreciated.
Yes, if you can raise the hand or you can message, we will unmute you. Okay, Mr. Sir has told that varying speed for adjusting demand and save energy.
Definitely.
Alan Joe Kishore, adjust the speed of the fan. So
yeah, as I said earlier, there is no wrong answer to it. Everybody has their perception, and everything is correct when we refer to energy efficiency or energy saving through VFD. So, in short, a small reduction in speed can result in a much bigger reduction in power saving or power consumption. So, and this is actually governed by affinity law. I'm sure most of you would be knowing what an affinity law is, since most of you are scholars and engineering students. So, an affinity law or definite law are used to express the relationship between variables like the pump or fan, the performance, head, volumetric, flow rate, speed, and power. So, referring to the previous graph here, and have a image of VFD, and also you can have a image of a pump or a chiller, and affinity law. So, if the flow is reduced by half the speed, so you can see here in the graph, if you reduce the flow by half, maybe about 50%, you can notice the power consumption is almost 1/10, 1/8 in that range. So this is the importance of having a variable frequency drive. And why, say, usually you don't have a VFD. Say, for example, you consider or you imagine there's no VFD in a building, or you have 11 floor building, and on an ideal scenario, you have full occupants in 11 floors, and you have a full load, and at 100% flow, you're 100% power consumption. That is very much justified. But say with today's scenario, when you have a COVID-19 scenario, probably you will be having about 30% of occupancy or 40%. And if you don't have anything of this sort to control, what will happen is you will still be running at 100% load, and your power consumption will still be at 100%. So you're not saving anything there. So unnecessarily, you'll be just running the chillers, running the flow and stuff like that. In short, this is very simple explanation that I'm giving. So affinity law, if you reduce the shaft speed by half, you see it is directly proportional. The flow is half. And similarly, the pressure on the equipment is reduced by 1/4 when the speed is reduced. Do not think about any units. So just 10 square is 100. Imagine if it is reducing, it is 5 square to 25. Similarly, this relates to the previous graph. When you reduce the shaft speed by half, you can see about 1/8 power reduction. So you notice 10 cube and 1000, you can think about being 1000 kilowatt consumption. And when you reduce the shaft speed by half, that is 5 cube, you notice the energy consumption is only 125 kilowatt. So this is a clear case, why such kind of instruments or equipment has to be there in the field in order to save energy. So now you have all the equipments in the building, but you would need some intelligent system which can control and monitor, or also you can have a graphical interface so that you know what is happening in the building. So ideally, building management system, or sometimes it is also referred as building energy management system, is what is used, and it is a network of devices to control mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and the entire system in the building, whichever can communicate to the controllers. So this is an example of a controller, how it can look. And again, building management system also is required to reduce energy and maintenance costs in the building. So it can be HVAC, it can be any other system. It can monitor, control, even the electrical systems, even the DGs, the diesel generators, the sewage plants, the water treatment plant, and HUs, plants. Everything can be controlled and monitored through BMS. And if I were to say a graphical user interface, this is a graphical user interface for an AHU, air handling unit, and this energy trend or some map in the building, so we can do image. And what is the today role of a BMS? In order to save energy and so HVAC systems ideally, and then all the other building systems. And HVAC system, as I said earlier, when I showed it includes about water plant, cooling, condensation, water treatment plant, and exhaust system, zone controls. I've just listed a few. There are like so many other things that can be integrated and monitored and controlled from a BMS system. So this is the basics of all HVAC, BMS, and the refrigeration cycle. So now leads to our exciting session, and I'm sure when I say digital disruptions, it is called digital disruption is because a disruption is changing technology in such a way that you would have not experienced it before. And it is rightly known as the future technologies. And
yes,
from my end,
Bebin, sorry. Yeah. But there is no stoppage. We are able to listen you, but sometimes some small disturbance is coming. I think it is a connectivity issue.
Okay. Let me have a check. 1 minute.
Yes. If it persists, we will re-log in. Otherwise, we will continue.
Okay. So is it fine now?
Yes. It is fine. Actually, the audio is fine. Sometimes some words are missing. Yes. So yeah, you can continue.
Oh. Okay. Thanks for highlighting. So when we talk about smart sensors, machine learning, IoT, digitalization, artificial intelligence, big data, cloud computing, all these were covered in the session 2. And probably what I will do is again just brush through the importance or the just definition of this, and then we can see about application of all these in a nutshell. So sensors, machine learning, IoT, digitalization, artificial intelligence, data, big data, cloud computing. So in any IoT,
Hi, Febin.
we need the first stage to get the smart.
Hello.
Yeah.
Febin, I think your
screen got. Hello.
Yeah, your screen got ended. Screen share got ended, and that's persist. That sound issue persists. Can you just relog in once again and?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes, Febin, please. Dear participants, sorry for that interruption. Nowadays, I told you that this type of connectivity issues happen because our network is strongly connected to these people. We are working at home. A lot of people are connected to internet nowadays. So we can wait for a couple of minutes. So Febin will be back.
Sorry.
Hope I am audible now.
Yes, Febin, you are audible.
Okay. Can I get that rights to share the screen?
Yes, I will give you. Yes. Yes, I have shared this one, present access.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry about this network connectivity.
Yeah, it's okay. Nowadays during webinars this will happen. This happens usually.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. So now the screen is coming. Now the voice interference is persisting. I think on the video is not.
I was here and we were talking about digital.
But the voice interference is still there.
Here?
And the audio is breaking.
Okay, just give me a minute. I can hear as well.
Sure.
Some audio. Is it clear now?
Yes, Febin. Yeah, it's clear.
Okay. So we were here, smart sensors. So that is a device that takes inputs from the physical environment and uses the built-in computing intelligence to perform predefined functions and then process the data to the next layer or the edge layer. So in any IoT systems, this happens to be the first step, having a smart sensor at the field. And then machine learning, it is a study of computer algorithms that improve automatically through experience, and it is actually a subset of artificial intelligence. And IoT has a lot of definition, and to make it simple probably, or to make it very complex, I would say, is a system of interrelated computing devices, maybe mechanical and digital machines, objects, people, and all can be connected, and they would all have a unique identifier and will have the ability to transfer data over a network without requiring any human to human or a human to computer interaction. So this is a complex definition, or in simple terms, IoT is just Internet of Things, and Cisco says Internet of Everything is Internet of Things. And digitization, it is a process of converting information into a digital format. You will have some plain information, and that when you have some intelligent layer of this sort, and then you get insights, and then you convert that into a digital format. And then AI refers to the simulation of human intelligence in the machine, that are programmed through to think like humans and mimic their actions. And I'm just brushing through because I'm sure this was conducted in the session 2 with an example or with a complete image. So I'm just giving a brief definition. And big data is a field that treats and ways to analyze systematically, extract information from or otherwise deal with data that is too large or complex to be dealt by any traditional data processing system or application software. And cloud computing, as said by Microsoft, is the delivery of computing services, including the servers, storage, database, networking, software, analytics, and intelligence over the internet to offer faster communication, flexible resources, and economies to scale. So these are some of the buzzwords in today's generation, and which will remain for a good number of decades, which will benefit the human race. And in cloud computing, there is another important factor. You typically pay only for the cloud services you use. That the importance of that is you're helping to lower your cost, run your infra more efficiently, because already the backend storage, everything is set up by the cloud service provider, maybe be it Microsoft or an IBM or Amazon. So how do we do it? So this is a Cisco explanation. You would have seen this graph, or people talking about you have 50 billion connected devices by 2020. So the green one is referring to the device, and 2020 you notice it is 50. So IoT acceleration is very prevalent in the system, and we believe that the gains and advances in efficiency will be driven by the convergence of operational technology and information technology. And behind that converge is the acceleration of Internet of Things, in particular in the industrial world. That's why actually we are all here to discuss about this. And IoT and their convergence will lead to energy optimization and process optimization. And I'm sure, again, this is a repetitive thing, 3.2 billion people sometime back on the internet, but we are expecting the devices to be about 50 billion by the end of this year. And again, this is a rough estimate. It can go beyond 50 as well, with the pace that we are with today, and especially with this situation that in the present scenario, I'm sure for the last 3-4 months, this would have skyrocketed again. So big data, why big data is required? The data collected is very huge, and in order to store and process such enormous amount of data, and that to near real time, and also give you insights, we would need big data, artificial intelligence, cloud computing, machine learning capabilities. So if you were to talk about any traditional system today, it can collect data, but it cannot collect data to this extent when you have varied data and the speed, and convert that into near real-time visibility and process that and give intelligence out of it. That is not prevalent in the on-premise or the smaller systems that we have in the field. So that is why we usually talk about cloud. So when we talk about big data, it is usually talking about cloud as well. And I'm sure this is covered in the second session again, the 5 V's of big data, but I'll just add little more into it. So if we see big data as a pyramid, the volume is the base, and the volume that the companies manage has skyrocketed, and this volume doubles about every 40 months. So we are talking about huge data here. And in addition to that, as I said, near real-time capability. The second part is about velocity. So we'll have to have the data to have that capability to give the results and show the results or process in near real time. So the velocity is the next important point. And the other thing is you get data from variety of sources. So that makes the third V of a big data. And the fourth V is veracity. And in this context, it is equivalent to quality. So we have all the data, but we could be missing something in that. Are the data clean and accurate? Do they really have something to offer? So that is why this veracity or the fourth V is important. And finally, V for value sits at the top of a pyramid. So all the investments should end of the day have some value. So the fifth V of big data talks about value. And this refers to the ability to transform the colossal amount of data that is there here into a business intelligence. End of the day, when I say business intelligence, we are talking about impact, we are talking about the efficiency, we are talking about the performance. So rightly said, the V or the value, the final V, if you notice here, the animation on that is what makes it more important. And why cloud-based platform when you have so many other systems? No on-premise software can actually handle such kind of data and give you diagnostic analytics, predictive analytics, prescriptive analytics. So all this runs in the cloud or in the big data or in any of these such intelligent systems. You will have multiple algorithms, which are intelligent algorithms running into the system. So here, what I would like to say is, what I would want all of you to say is, in the x-axis, you see hindsight, insight, and foresight. That is a visibility of the data, and the y-axis talks about the value. So why cloud is important? Because you get the foresight. That is, you get to know if an equipment is going to fail beforehand, and if there is any issue in an equipment, the system from the intelligent system will let you know what the problems are, and also recommend actions to rectify it. So these are some of the very important stuffs when it comes to cloud. And the main goals of a cloud-based platform would be, one is it is a flexible architecture. It is scalable, secure, and accessible anywhere. And the second part is it is about smart monitoring, root cause analysis, anomaly detection, incident management. All this possible because of all the intelligent algorithm that runs through this. And for that algorithm to run, you need big data and cloud-based systems. And predictive analytics is another feature which I was talking about: health recommendation, lifecycle management, and optimization. So you can imagine about a chiller here, and a chiller has a problem. And with the present day systems, you get basically a descriptive data. But with intelligent layers, you get such diagnostic analytics of a chiller, predictive analytics, and a prescriptive analytics. And this, now we have actually covered the basics and we have covered the digital disruptions. Now let us compare the traditional versus analytics and then where we stand today. So traditionally, I was talking about a building management system. So building management system usually controls and monitors the HVAC and other building systems like a chiller or a transformer or a variable speed drives, breakers. All this can be connected into a building, integrated to a building management system. So in a traditional BMS, we could monitor, control the HVAC system, and with the advancement, we are able to now utilize the power of IoT, big data, AI, cloud computing in the field of HVAC with a strong analytics layer that we have. And this helps to prioritize the issue based on energy, comfort, and maintenance. So now, if you notice, I was talking about connected products, edge, and apps analytics. This is where our 50% revenues are. And when we talk about it, the connected products, we ensure these are smart products here. Say if you have a chiller, you need some smart sensors on it or smart application on it, so you get maximum input from that to be processed here in the data, in the BMS system, and then that is pushed to the analytics layer. And with that, you get energy saving insights, you get comfort saving insights, and comfort insights, alarm monitoring, and condition-based system, condition-based maintenance. So this is a small, a very minor way of telling a traditional building versus analytics-based systems. But if you actually get into the field, there are a lot of problems that you encounter. But to put it simple, this is how it looks. And I was also referring to Schneider's IoT platform. So everyone has their own definition of IoT. And at Schneider, IoT means EcoStruxure. So our platform is based on EcoStruxure, and EcoStruxure is an IoT platform. And in this part, we will be looking at a digital backbone. What is the why we call it a digital backbone, and the openness of the system, and a solution. And why I've kept this topic is because my project idea that I want to propose here to all the students just for a brainstorming session would include some of the inputs from this slide, and how it works, architecture, the benefits, the impact, all that is referred here. So EcoStruxure is the digital backbone, and it is our IoT enabled architecture and platform, and it is very simple and open. When I say open, it is open to any third-party integrations, and it is very user-centric system. So, and the 3 layers. So, as I referred earlier, everyone is talking about IoT, but IoT has to start from this point, that is the digital IP bone, having a connected product which is very smart, and it starts with good things, excellent things, and world-leading things at the first layer. And with that, the data is processed to the powerful integration layer, wherein you process the inputs received from the smart sensors. And then today, or the project idea is all about this layer, that which I will be taking through in a demo and coming slides. So this is the analytics layer, which is the energy saving part in a HVAC with the new technologies that we have. And so, as I said earlier, building, data center, industry, infrastructure, we are using this in all these 4 end markets and in all these domains: building, power, IT, machine, plant, grid. So students who are thinking about any projects, you can think about having some projects on a building or on a power or an IT machine or on a plant, grid, such kind of proposals. You can just think about it. So you can have IoT in any of these fields, which can end up the day result in the energy efficiency on any of these equipments or system. It may be it can vary from a very small system to a complex system. And now getting into the actual layer, which will be a part of the project that I would propose, or the analytics part on a HVAC system. So it is actually termed as Building Advisor, and it is actually called Building Analytics as well. And it's a unique analytics system. So this system is BMS agnostic. That is, the edge layer can be anything where the data is aggregated. It can be of any manufacturer, and you collect the data from there, and this can be deployed. The analytics layer can be deployed on any of the edge layers, and it is non-intrusive. When I say non-intrusive, it is that a very minimum hardware requirement would be required during a course of deployment, or virtually zero. And it also gives you multi-infrastructure view, or multi-systems or multi-equipment wherever you have connected. All of that can be seen in a single pane of glass. And the technology and operations that drives this analytics layer is some of the smart tools like energy saving insights, condition-based maintenance, diagnostics, comfort-related insights, task management, and project tracking. So I would just highlight one diagnostic tool, that is automated fault detection and diagnostic. That's a smart tool here, and which enables, if there is any problem in the system, it automatically detects the fault and diagnoses and gives you the prescriptive action what to be taken. So during the demo that I will show, you can actually have a complete view of what I'm talking about when I say this AFTD. And adding to it, we have data scientists in the Connected Services Hub who will be actually giving additional intelligence onto the insights given by the system. So this is actually a complete process that I'm talking about, how analytics layer is added into a HVAC. You will have skilled on-site technician again, and it is a collaboration, people, technology, and their collaboration. So end of the day, in order to have a analytics run on the HVAC systems, you would need a smart technology with their collaboration with people. And when I say people, it is referring to the data scientists and the skilled technicians who are rectifying the issues at site. And so how does the analytics work in a building environment? So imagine this to be a heating plant or a chiller plant, and this is functioning normal, and it is with the help of controllers and field devices, you are sharing the data to a common platform or a common building management system. So from that building management system, every 5 minutes, the data is pulled and distributed in the cloud. And then once it is processed, like the way it is shown here on the right side, the data here or the activity that is happening here is processed and shown as such intelligent systems on the desktop, mobile, or on the web access. So behind this, you have about 800 or 1,000 plus algorithms that is running through the systems to make this information or the graphical view here shown into a useful insights of this sorts. And an architectural overview, every 5 minutes, the data in the BMS station, and then through a protected layer, it is moved. And then all the data is collected in the data center. And then you have the web app for viewing the intelligent reports that you have gone. So these are some of the benefits. So implying such intelligent systems we are able to reduce energy cost up to 20%. And these are other benefits related to this system. About 33% occupant complaints are reduced, and unscheduled maintenance are reduced by 29%. Most of the issues are being resolved remotely by about 80%. And end of the day, you are reducing the energy bill, increasing the value of building, maximizing the efficiency of building, optimizing the comfort and productivity. And some of the demonstrated impacts. So why I have brought in the slide here typically is to see the energy saving insights in some of the deployment where we have done this, where we have deployed it, and the live results that we have seen out of it is tremendous. So if you notice, there's a research lab in USA where we've deployed this analytics layer on the HVAC system. And in the very first year, you're able to see 51% less energy related faults. And the energy savings was about 40K USD. But that's a very huge building. You have about 5 very huge building with about 10 or 12,000 BMS points. So we're talking about a huge building, and with number of points also being monitored is huge. And another example, which is about a commercial tower in USA. And with the very first year, you are able to see a 75K USD savings post deployment of a building advisor or the analytics layer on HVAC. And life sciences company with about 4 countries and about 82 buildings. This was deployed, and on an annual basis, you are able to see about 1,200K savings, USD savings. And This is one very good example again, one of the airports in Australia, where this intelligent layer was deployed in a HVAC system, and 50% complaints were received annually or was reduced. So you can see the impact of such intelligent layer live that is happening. So airport, that's a huge system when you talk about HVAC in an airport. And to derive or arrive at about 50% less complaints post deployment of this analytics layer talks the volume about having such intelligent system in HVAC system, be it in a building or be it as complex as airport. So all these are complied with cybersecurity, because the moment you talk about cloud, we have to talk about cybersecurity, and all the systems that we are talking today deals with all the ISO certifications, IEC certifications, and all the standards that is required. And in Schneider, we follow all the software in the complete development cycle of either product or software. This is a part of it, cybersecurity. And this brings me to the exciting session, the last couple of the slides. And here I would talk about one slide about a chiller plant, where I would give a project proposal for students. You can think in this line as well, apart from your other systems which you can think about, but this is just a rough idea or small idea from my end. And then you have some brainstorming regarding the project, what to be done or how it can be done. And end of the day, in the project, we are seeking you collect data, you collect information, and you also gather the expertise from our Schneider or from your end, and then you gain insights from all this data. You ensure that some action is taken for all the data that you take, and then you start seeing the effects for the end users. Probably say why, if I were to say in a simple term, you can just consider roughly, for an example, you are seeing, you take one project where you have a building which is consuming, say power is consumed is 100. Maybe I'm just giving a small number, 100. Probably with the IoT that you are planning with the project, your intent should be to reduce that 100 to about 85 or 80 or 90 or in that range. So project proposed is chiller plant digital twin. And before I actually get into the digital twin part, I would want to know from the students over here or the audiences, what is that they know when we talk or when we say digital twin. So again, here I will take a small pause. I would encourage students to respond in the chat so that we can know what is a digital twin, so that others also can know what it is. And Anup or Anish, you can just confirm me once you see a couple of answers coming in, so that I will start again.
Yes, sure, Praveen. So participants, you can just share your ideas. Yeah, there is one. Praveen, shall I read the questions this time, or shall I read it in the end of the session?
I think questions we can read in the end, so that we finish it off. I have some more some of reports to be shown, and then we can take the questions at one go, so that that flow is there for all the questions at one go.
Okay, now with regards to this chiller digital twin, yes, we want to get some response from the participants, right?
Yes. Maybe one or two responses if we can get what a chiller plant, or not chiller plant. I'm just talking about a digital twin. What is that strikes in your head when you say a digital twin? What is that you can imagine about?
Yes, participants, please, because it has to be more interactive, because since Praveen he's speaking since the beginning. So being a Sunday, it is lazy, so people will start sleeping also. So they will this type of interactions is also necessary. So dear participants, you can please type in what is the digital twin, what is strikes in your head. Okay, Suraj has answered. This analogous representation of a physical equipment or system in digital form.
Yeah.
our Aravind has answered. A digital twin would be a virtual counterpart of a real physical device or an appliance. Then Aparna, a digital simulation of an equipment. Then Mr. Vishal has responded that chiller plant implementing technologies like IoT or computing. So
Yes.
these are the responses we are getting.
Everything is correct. So
Okay.
basically, when you talk about digital twin, you have two worlds. One is a physical world, and the other one is a digital world. So essentially, you're just creating, or in a digital world, whatever is there in a physical world, you're just replicating in a virtual way in a digital world. So how that is done, I will just show it here. So imagine physical world, and why specifically a chiller plant? I have mentioned is because I have an image of a chiller plant here. So in a live case scenario, this is how a chiller plant would look. You can talk about this is a water cooled chiller, and you have a cooling tower, you have some air cooled chillers, and you have some associated pumps and some makeup tanks, and then this supplied to the building, the load. So when I referred that 78% or 65% of the energy consumption, 65% is happening through the entire system here, and 78% is actually happening from the chiller alone. So here in the physical world, in the present day scenario, what we are doing is we create and communicate through sensors and controllers, and the data is collected into the, if you have a chiller plant manager, probably into a chiller plant manager, or if it is into a BMS system, you will have a BMS. So in this traditional system, again, traditional versus analytics. I am going back to my previous slide, or one of the slides that I was discussing. So in the traditional system, this is what we are doing. You have sensors, you have smart controllers also, and you are only collecting the data. But what are you gaining out of it? In the traditional system, there is nothing much apart from the controlling, sequencing, and then trying to save the energy. But what is happening with digital twin? When I say digital twin, you are creating another world which is digital in nature, a replica of the complete system, that is the pump, the cooling tower, the chiller, everything. You have a digital replica of this done. And say, for example, this water cooled chillers, ideally it should work at some X efficiency, but in the physical world or in the actual real world, it would be at X minus some efficiency. So with the advent of digital twin, what we're doing is we create the physical world, that is the physical replica of all these things. And then there is a real-time comparison that happens between, say, X as per the manufacturing standard, and as per the physical, X minus some efficiency. So with the intelligent layer, what this analytics would do is, it would reflect in the system to say why there is that difference in efficiency, and how you can actually make it nearing that N in case of this. So we'll see how it is done. So the data is actually pushed. Probably this interval can vary. It's pushed from the BMS system to the analytics layer. Sorry, the Azure data center, or I'm referring Azure because I'm more conversant with Microsoft. It can be any cloud, and the data gets pushed to the cloud, and then it is aggregated there. And the analysis or the analytics algorithm, the predictive algorithms, will run through the complete system, compare the digital world and the physical world. And that is when it starts giving you insights, stating that, okay, there is an issue. Imagine here inside the pipe, there is something that is stuck, or that is something that probably the temperature sensor is not working fine, or this valve is not working fine. So with the BMS, you may get an alarm stating that there is some issue here in the system because you are not able to achieve the temperature that is required. But with the digital layer coming in, what happens is the predictive system would run through the complete sequencing, some complete plant, and if there is anything, because of this reading, say if this it to be 9.4, and if it is showing about 8.4, or the set point should be about 6 point or something, or 6 degrees. So why there is that difference is what is analyzed from the system here, and it will show us that prescriptive or predictive insights is what is given from the system, and it will recommend actions to be taken so that you function this as per the manufacturing standards. So this is how it is done. So in your case, so the students here, you can pick up one of the buildings. I'm just proposing, in addition to the normal ideas that you have, probably you can pick up any building in Kerala, a government building, and you can check about where there is the chiller plant, and you can try to implement this on a real time so that you have a real time experience of going through this. So this is one, and the associated documents which would be there along with that is, say for example, we were talking about a building. You can identify a building, you can conduct a gap analysis. A Schneider engineer or Schneider technician or Schneider person can join along with the identified students. You can check for the BMS whether it is set up or not, and then you can finalize what all HVAC assets like chiller or a cooling tower or a pump to be considered for this digital twinning program. And then this will be like a project and subscribe service where the end user also benefits with the portal that you have, and on a monthly basis or on a daily basis, the students who have chosen this project can interact with Schneider and the end client, and they can gain the real-time experience at industry, how to actually on a HVAC scenario, how to actually reduce the energy consumption, have that first level discussion with customer, interact with Schneider, the experts who are there, the service or the connected services hub, where you meet the data scientists either on a digital session or in Bangalore we have our service. I mean, in India we have our connected services hub, that all our data centers are in Bangalore in our R&D center. Probably a digital session can be arranged, and this is how. In case if the entire building has to be taken up for a project, then you will have the entire other systems, say HUs, air compressor, boiler, chiller plant, exhaust fan, heat exchangers, primary pumps, secondary condenser, storage, supply fans, utility. So the digital twin that I was referring to as a chiller is applicable to all these components when we are talking about a complete building scenario. So all these products, all these equipments will be under a digital twin for a comparison, and then it will be set up. And so end of the day, what we are talking about is, say today you do some project, you take up a building with the support from Schneider and the initiative that Kerala government has driven. Probably you can identify something, and then what is the advantage is you are able to do the analytics monitoring. This software will do it, and the actionable insights and web interface, all this is shown from the software to the students who are engaged in this project. And then an interaction with data scientists at Bangalore who will give their recommendation and on the project or the building connected. And then you will have a customer success manager meeting. So you can have a Schneider expert talking to you and the building manager or building maintenance manager with whom you have discussed or you are thinking about a project. So this is how the process would be. So now I'll just take a couple of minutes on the reference. So maybe a decade back or 15-20 years back, if we were to talk about any HVAC sessions or HVAC systems, you would talk about all these generals, the ASHRAE, the BEE, and the Department of Energy or any other standards, plus an OEM, the original equipment manufacturer. Like for chiller, it is Johnson Controls or anybody, and then the integrator, like maybe Schneider Electric here. So this is a reference, Energy University by Schneider Electric. But if you notice, the very addition of Cisco and Microsoft, who are IT giants, relates to having the importance of IoT in the analytics layer of HVAC. So I'm just mentioning two IT giants here because I've referred them here for this content. But world is changing. Along with the OT technology, that is OT is provided by Schneider, you have the IT giants merging. So this is where the success of IoT can be viewed. So this is about the PPT. Now I'll just take through a couple of reports, what you would see when you deploy such kind of intelligent systems in a HVAC system. We can start. Okay, I hope I've stopped sharing the screen. And let's see the questions. We can actually start discussing the questions.
I'll read the questions. Some questions are in the chat box. Okay. Okay, so Joseph Lloyd had initially asked regarding the use of heat pumps instead of AC. What is the difference? And
So heat pumps. So what I was talking about is in that typical scenario for that building. What I was showing there was a typical HVAC system, and why there was a heat pump or a boiler in that loop is, say in an Indian scenario, it might not be applicable, but if you go to a colder country, they would need during winters a hot air to be blown inside the building. So as simple as that. So one is probably for an Indian scenario, use a chiller system running always. And maybe in India, very rarely we will have the heat part coming or the boiler part coming into the building scenario for the managing the temperature and stuff. So that is one.
Nowadays, heat pumps are used in heating. Also, we have in tropical areas like Munnar, like in Kerala, heat pump.
Yes,
we have nowadays using this heat pumps. Nowadays this indoor units are available with heating mode also.
Yes.
They have we can increase the temperature beyond 40 up to 40 degree we can set. So that case, I think the cycle will be reversed as heat pump mode. And also it's used for hot water generation. Most of the hotels nowadays people, it is hot water is a mandatory demand. Like most of the tourist people, they demand. So heat pumps are used there for energy savings.
Yes,
I guess
absolutely. So, in hotels, also it is used because in hotel there is a demand for hot water and stuff like that. So that is always used in the system.
I think we can work on some IoT techniques for heat pump, because as Energy Management Center, we recommend this as an energy efficient technology, because heat pumps we see in a lot of new upcoming projects. So we can, if it is possible to implement IoT, it will be good. Then another question, So what is the Mr. What is the difference between primary and secondary pump? I think I have given one answer, but you can.
Okay, so I actually had one specific slide on that in this session, but then I thought, okay, that will be too basic to not implement. So a primary system, consider a building, you have a chiller, you have HU, and you have a cooling tower or certain set of primary and secondary pumps. So primary pumps can be referred to as whatever is dealing with only the chiller side of the plant. So whatever is functioning only onto the chiller side is called primary pumps. And what is actually demanding or pushing the system to the building load or whichever is interacting with HUs is called secondary pump. So I'll just 1 minute, let me see if I can pull up that and show it off so it will be very clear to note.
Normally we use this VFDs in the secondary side, I think, because this primary side, if we vary the speed, you it will affect the chiller performance, I think.
Yeah, it is usually used in the skin. Just I'm just trying to open that file so that excuse me for the sound that you would be hearing. I have a couple of dogs in my house. Although I am in a separate room, I can still hear from my side as well. I'm sorry for that.
No problem. No problem.
And
You have any other questions, you can please add to the chat box. We have time. We can have some discussion.
so I will just share the screen again and just
Yes.
confirm me if this screen is visible.
It's coming. Yes.
Yes. So this, I think, should be an image where you can actually relate to. So in a chiller or a boiler, this part, whichever is interacting with the main chiller plant, is the primary pump, and whichever is catering the building load is the secondary pump. So here you can say these are the HUs, these are multiple floors probably, and wherever these are into it is called the secondary pump. So a primary and secondary pump, this is the, in simple terms, this is the differentiation. Whichever is with the chillers, whichever is supporting a chiller in a chiller plant as the primary pump, whichever is meeting the delivery at building is the secondary pump. So here, if you notice, from the chiller, you would be having a cold air moving into the building, and then ideally this would be at 6 degrees. This would be at 6 degrees, and then you will have that heat exchange happening in the HU, and then with the building interaction with other systems and all, it would come back at about 12 degrees and come back into the system. And then this is a repetitive process through the condenser and evaporator and all, and through the complete cooling tower and systems. So if I were to just show, I'll just show it off in the graphical GIF way also. So this is how it is happening. So if you notice here in the pump, this is the primary part of it, and if you notice here, this is where the building load is moving into the system, 6 degrees, and then there's a cooling tower functioning, chiller. So ideally, I wanted this to be there, but then I thought, okay, that will be too basic, so I didn't actually consider for this presentation.
Yes, thank you, Febin. And also adding to this point, see, whenever we need a speed variation. Whenever we want a demand variation, then only we will go for a VFD. Because in some projects we have worked also this. Whenever we want to implement VFD, then we will add secondary pump. Normally, we will small systems will be having primary pump only. I think it is Febin.
Yes.
Yes. Then see, VFD is a new converter, so it will be causing power quality problems. So whenever you are sure that you need a speed change, whenever there is a demand variation, up to 50% minimum, then only we have to go for VFD, because this is unnecessarily we will be adding power quality issues. So we have to add additional filters to arrest the harmonics and all. But if the energy saving potential is very high, we opt for a secondary pump and VFD control. And also some sites we have seen the VFDs are implemented, but the speed is controlled manually. The VFD, there is a control screen. The speed variation is done manually. Then there is no use of going for VFD. If you want to go for a fixed speed operation, no need to go for additional investment, because otherwise, if you want to go for VFD, the variation shall be a closed loop mode. that using sensors, you have to get the demand, get the flow rate, and then command to the VFD to control the speed. So we have one more question. This is related to variable air volume.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was just looking at it. So VAV also has an effect on energy efficiency. So it is just like, as I said, one more during the presentation, I was talking about a building full load versus partial load. So similarly, VAV also, what it does is a variable air volume. So if there is no demand in that floor, usually it is a floor equipment or a zone equipment, and you can modulate the valve inside the VAV box in such a way that it meets only the required demand in that floor. Instead of, say, imagine you need, you don't have such kind of a VAV system in a duct. You will have the 100% flow happening. So that is additional energy consumption. So if the number of people in the building is very less or in the floor is very less, you would not want the complete valve to be open. So VAV would modulate that valve and ensure that whatever is required for the floor is what the air is circulated, so that it meets the temperature required for the floor. Usually about, as I said, the standard is about 22 to 26. And generally we see 22 to 24 as a bracket where we say it is okay, conditioned air or cool air. As soon as it goes beyond 24 or below 22, we modulate the VAV in such a way that there is a temperature that is maintained. So it definitely has an effect on energy saving.
Yes, thank you, Subin. Adding to that, see, what we have discussed here is chilled water plant. So chilled water plant, it is a conventional system where we will be having a central plant, which is having the air conditioning, refrigerant circuits and all in the central area. It may be on the rooftop or it can be in the cellar, some plant area. From there, we will be circulating chilled water at 5 to 8 degrees Celsius to the load centers in each floor, or if it is a resort means we'll send to each load centers. So in variable air volume, what will happen is this chilled water will not be there. There will be, it is a conventional, just like a expansion of a split AC. In split AC, what is there? There is an outdoor unit and an indoor unit. There will be a refrigerant circuit. So this refrigerant circuit will be expanded. There will be multiple indoor units and will be a single outdoor unit. So these indoor units will be kept at each load center, each room or each conference hall or something like that. So up to there, we will be having a very vast refrigerant circuit. So the refrigerant will be reaching each load center, not the chilled water. So and here what will be happening is this based on the demand, variation in demand of the cooling demand, this refrigerant flow will vary. So accordingly, we have to control the speed of the compressor, or we will be having some multiple compressors. So this is why it has got the name variable refrigerant volume, or some manufacturers, they call it as variable refrigerant flow, and some people call it variable refrigerant temperature. So these are all same. These are VRV, VRT, VRF. These are all same. Only the sales point of view, they are giving different names. Febin, am I correct?
Yeah, only thing is I heard VRV, VRF and VAV is same. Only thing is VAV is a zone equipment. That's a small correction.
Yes.
So then, I just see one more question where it states, is retrofitting will be the first, if retrofitting will be the first step for all industrial systems, is IoT going to decentralize existing and upcoming SCADA system as a part of Industry 4? So retrofitting, yes, is the first step, given the present scenario for getting into the new systems. But as I said, in any retrofit, we would not be investing, or we would not be replacing the entire systems. So if I were to say, this will be typically on an iceberg kind of a methodology. What you would see is only the top layer of an iceberg. So that is what an IoT generally, we intend, so that for example, if say there is some 100 crore investment done with some previous systems, and nobody would be ready to have that 100% or 100 crore investment again to replace the complete systems. So in any case of retrofitting, what we do is we conduct a gap analysis and we see what is communicable with the present systems. we ensure to retain all the systems that can communicate with the newer systems, and then only the top layer or which can interact with the present systems is replaced, which is kept at field and which cannot by any means talk to the new systems is what is replaced. So if you're talking about maybe about 20 years, 30 years old systems, probably that as a complete system will be replaced. But when it comes to about 10, 15 years system, it is partial. So you kind of have a partial systems which can communicate, partial system which cannot. So ideally, to put it short, you can just refer an image of a iceberg in your thought, wherein you have definitely seen just a top layer of an iceberg on a water, but below that you would see a huge chunk. So we try to keep that huge chunk as it is and make the systems efficient. And then this can be a phased approach. Say, for example, if it is 100 crore investment to be done, we would try to have it on a phased approach, wherein probably 5 years down the lane, we have everything replaced in a phased manner and have the complete IoT setup. And SCADA will not be replaced because SCADA is here to stay. So
yes, thank you, Febin. I think nowadays we are having this BLDC motor-based AHUs and FCUs also. Some manufacturers are having it.
Even VFDs are thing of past. So I was just referring to VFD. Today we have something called EC fans. So EC fans will change the way AHU functions. So by the way, with EC fans, you are saving a lot of cabling in order to connect to a traditional BMS system. Even for a temperature sensor, for a humidity sensor, for everything you would have to lay separate number of cables. But with EC fans, that is a new systems in AHUs, you are able to have everything controlled with one single point, and the EC fan will talk with just one cable, or you can loop the entire EC fans in the building with just one cable to the BMS. So thereby you're reducing a lot of unnecessary cabling work, and it is also efficient. So that is also a very good technology that has come up. It is electronically, the EC is that electronical part of that fans. If I have to say the full form, it is electronically commutated. So AC, DC, and that combines this one.
And adding to that, whenever you come with a proposal which is regarding to HVAC, energy efficiency in HVAC, you please try to mention which parameter you are improving. By using IoT is only a helping hand. IoT is only the technology you are using to implement energy efficiency. So if it is let us say it is a cooling tower application, so what you are improving in that? You are improving the approach, or some technical terms are there. So you have to do a review, a literature review. Then in what improvement you are doing. So that will be better if you submit a proposal. It should be clear. So any other doubts? Yeah, one more doubt is there. It is in any industrial sector, SCADA is better than an IoT in this regard to safety and effectiveness. I think he's meaning that is SCADA better than IoT in regards to safety and effectiveness.
So SCADA in the industry has been there from a long time, but IoT is a revolutionary technology. So it is in the beginning stage. If you notice, we are hearing about a lot of Industry 4.0 concept. So eventually you will see the transition happening, but not in the near future. But definitely there is an Industry 4.0 that with IoT, with all this big data, cloud computing, which will slowly get the inroads into the factory environment as well. So maybe to start with, maybe you would have seen long back people were replaced by robots. So slowly, with this evolution, you will see the better things replacing the older formats. Even if I have to talk about, even in this systems also, I'm sure most of you would have heard about quantum computing. That term is there from 1990, but again, that there is a report about quantum computing as well, which will come into the factors of a building or a HVAC to that level. And quantum computing will also revolutionize the entire IoT as well. So that is the next technology coming in, and IoT also will shortly be replaced as AIoT, artificial intelligence OT. So there's a lot of evolution happening. So probably 5 years down the lane, we will not be talking about IoT as well. We will be talking about AIoT and other technology that is coming up. So it is evolving. And to put in short, in today's scenario, we are used to SCADA, and that seems to be better. But IoT is catching up that space with the Industry 4.0. And most of the companies have already moved to Industry 4.0. In short, this is what I could just say.
I think in SCADA, there are more number of sensors, and I think in IoT, the number of sensors will be smaller, and it will be more intelligent than SCADA, right?
Yes, both are again advantage, disadvantage. You imagine a place where you don't have network, then you will have to find out something new, or you have to add something into it. So we'll have to see how the technology evolves when it comes to these two. But if you have a stronger network, it is always IoT will have an upper hand later. I also see another question: how IoT is different from SCADA and Industrial AI can assist both systems. So that is what we were mentioning. Like again, all these terms, AI is catching up. So SCADA will probably, with the SCADA was intelligent. It will remain intelligent with all the new technologies that we have today. And IoT, as I already said, will soon be replaced as AIoT. So it is all evolving. And probably you will have to allow just 2 or 3 years more, and you can see the complete difference happening. Like say 20 years back or 10-15 years back, if somebody were to talk about access to mobile banking, there were few people to take that or consider it. But today, everything is not even happening on a mobile banking. We're doing through UPIs. So that is the evolution of technology. So the same thing will happen with all the field industry technologies as well.
Yes,
So
yes,
participants,
thank you. Yes.
Yeah, thank you
Yes,
for participants. Any other questions? So otherwise,
so dear participants, any questions or any suggestions, you can just put in the chat box.
Arvind is typing something.
So okay. So there's just one addition that I would, if I were to say, in the IoT SCADA with reference to Varun. So SCADA, I can just say, if you were referring to my previous one of the slides that I was showing, you have traditional systems versus the analytics-based systems. IoT can fall under the AI-based system, whereas SCADA is at the middle layer where it is aggregating all the data, and then it is taking intelligence from the AI or in the machine learning.
Yes, Mr. Varun has asked, okay, just a suggestion. Of
Yeah.
course, no matter you like it or not, okay, decentralization is coming. How far is too far for artificial intelligence? Just asking, okay.
As I said, see, everything with technology is changing. So there is no right answer to it, because since every technology that we're talking today, whatever we are mentioning, machine learning, AI, everything has a change very next day. So it is all evolving. So it's a good decentralization that is always good.
Yes, sir. I will add to that, because yesterday also what we were discussing, conventionally we generated power at one end and we received it at another end. So generation, transmission, and distribution. So similarly, in all the areas like HVAC also, same thing, one generation and one load center. So now this what is meant by decentralization is there will be the system will be distributed into small parts. So everyone have their own renewable energy generation and their own consumption. So nowadays consumer is also known as prosumer, is producer plus consumer. So now yeah, what will happen is when we split in a larger system to a smaller one, the control and monitoring and the everything will analysis will become more complicated. Just when there is a bigger system, the control was easy, much more easy. Now this is split into small parts. So the decentralization have made controls and monitoring and verification, which is the key of the energy monitoring, energy efficiency. So this has become more complicated. So now we hope that IoT or artificial intelligence or machine learning can bring more light to that.
And there's another question from Suraj. With the building analytics, when you scale down for domestic and household applications, see, this building advisor or analytics that we have built is generally focusing on all these HVAC components and all that huge energy guzzlers. So to have that scaled down to a domestic application, specifically this one, is not possible. But yeah, it can be thought of in a way. You can have much smaller applications which is already existing in market. Where, but usually in a domestic or in a household application, you will not have an energy guzzler of this sort. So when we're talking about a chiller, you compare a chiller with split AC in a house. The energy consumption varies like enormous. The difference is like enormous, which need not have analytics of this sort to scale down. So we scale down to have that insights on that. But yeah, it is still possible with all the smart buildings applications that we have. Even a split AC in the house can still be made into an IoT, and you can gain insights on the split AC as well. But there are different applications for it. But when I specifically talk about building analytics or building advisor, it is for the HVAC components, which are basically the energy guzzlers in the complete systems, the complete building.
I think that was the last question. Okay. And is there anything to add? Hello, Anisha?
We can. I think most of the concepts are discussed here. I think the participants were also interactive because questions were less, because I think this air conditioning is this much is not covered in this most of the engineering branches. Even mechanical also this vast areas are not covered. I have seen mechanical people. So when they come to work in the industry, then only they will learn this. I think the central chilled water and all, they have only basic knowledge. So I think that's why the doubts are limited. Yesterday we had a lot of questions. So even I also asked some questions because the topic was very interesting. So here, if any, one more thing. Varun, thank you, Varun. Yes. So IoT is a very revolutionary technology. Yes. Yes. I think in future will be with this IoT, artificial intelligence, machine learning. So these all will join hands, and also this renewable energy and electric vehicles also promising technology. These all will go hand in hand. Then only there will be a good revolution. So okay, Suraj has asked, can we provide a link to project? Can provide a link to the project proposal? I'm not clear. Anu, can you address?
I didn't get you, Suraj. Can provide a link to the project proposal?
I think if I understood, it is about the project which you had mentioned earlier. I think it is email is what you had asked.
Yeah. Actually, you have to send the project proposals through email. It's already there described in the project prospectus that you have shared. We will share the link again of the prospectus. You please go through the prospectus, and in that all the details have been given. So as per the prospectus, you can send it to us through an application form. The format for the application form is also been given in the prospectus. So Joseph is telling regarding the project proposal need more insight. So actually Joseph, we are doing this whole for program in a holistic means in a time bound manner. We have that is why we have asked the help from Sebin, Amit, Arvind, and Suresh Babu sir for these sessions that we had in the past 4 days. So this is all the sessions that we are planned. So if you want more insight, we will discuss in EMC and we will let you know. Okay.
Yes, project proposal. It is. We are not intending to say that you should submit a detailed commercial project proposal. See, this is a student project proposal, so it should have more emphasis on research. It should have more emphasis on how the knowledge you are getting from this BTech background or MTech background, and how you are using to give an innovative solution. So it is a student project thing. So I think this time is sufficient. Can prepare one small proposal, but the proposal should be compact, and it should be having all ideas, and it should be very much linked to the energy efficiency. So yeah, so I think yeah, the email ID is also have been shared. So I think there is nothing much.
So finally, Sebin, I would like to, on behalf of Energy Management Center, I would like to thank you for your time. You have spent so much of time developing this PPT and for us. So thank you so much. I have disturbed you so many times in WhatsApp, in calls, and thank you for so much for your time. Thank you to all the team of Schneider Electric for this wonderful sessions that you have done for the past 2 days. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, EMC and the entire team. It's a pleasure always to share the knowledge that we have gained from industry. We have not gained maybe what I would have told today is about just 10%. But if we were to talk about HVAC, I'm sure you can conduct 4-day session only on HVAC itself. So such is the vast subject when you talk about HVAC. And I would just want students over here, if you can possibly get your hands onto Grace automation manual from Honeywell. That is kind of a Bible for HVAC systems. That's a huge book, and you can get a lot of information from that. So you can just type that in Google and you can probably see, and you have a PDF format as well in the website and all. You can just pick it up. Otherwise, in any reputed libraries, this should be there. It is talking about the control systems on a HVAC system. So just additional to it.
So so this is the last session. We have all the 4 sessions have been now ended. So thanks all the participants who have joined in the last 4 days. Thank you for all your participation. I hope this participation will reflect in the number of proposals that we received before the 8th of August. So any doubts, please email us at etrscp@gmail.com. The mail ID has been put in the chat box right now. So please send the proposals. Please send the proposals with the application form. If any doubts, please contact us. You can mail us. You can contact us through mobile, and that's it. I think we will contact you again regarding the proposals. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you, Febin. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you all. Thank you, Anup and Anish and the entire team.
Yes, thank you. Have a good day. Stay safe.